Hi, my name is Christy Lemire. That is Alonzo Duralde. That is Tim Grierson. There's a little Star Trek movie out this week called Star Trek Beyond. Is there punctuation in there? There's
None.
not.
None. You don't get to say colon
I
or
want a colon.
dash.
I
know
want a
you
colon,
do.
ampersand, beyond. So Alonzo's going to talk about what it's about.
All right, so Justin Lin takes over the directing reins from J.J. Abrams. And the result is kind of like a really good two-parter of the TV series. The Enterprise crew has to go into an uncharted nebula to rescue another ship's crew, only to face disaster, get separated, and have to figure out how to fix everything, which they may or may not do. Take a look.
It isn't uncommon, you know. It's easy to get lost in the vastness of space. There's only yourself, your ship, your crew.
You really want to head back out there, huh?
What the hell is this?
So one thing that was so refreshing about this is that it's fun.
It's a blast.
It's light and it's fun. And yes, there are stakes, but so often and increasingly so with these big summer blockbusters, it's like the end of the world is nigh.
Right.
And it's dark and it's brooding and it's like, you know, these turgid, tortured backstories. And here it's just like they're just goofing on each other and having a good time, and the banter is fun. And the effects are fun.
there are some end of the world stakes, and there is
The Federation is threatened to be destroyed.
Yeah,
and
there is a dark villain, but you're right. In the context of like, I mean, it's not. I don't want people get into that whole dichotomy of like, oh, the Marvel movies are too wacky and the DC movies are too dark. Like this isn't. Star Trek, but you're right. It's breezy and it's, they don't get too bogged down in the specifics, but there is a serious threat still.
Yes. So I am not a massive Star Trek fan, but our friend Tom is, and sent us an email with like of like Easter eggs. And
exactly.
Stuff. So I guess if you're a huge fan, there's a lot of fan service at work here.
Yeah. Apparently, this is the movie where if you've been waiting for a Star Trek film that had fan service for Enterprise, the Scott Bakula show.
Oh, wow.
This is the one.
Wait, what was that?
That was the one about the very first starship.
Okay, but what in the movie is a thing that references that?
Well, I'm not going to say that. It would be spoilers.
It's a thing. It's a big thing?
There's several things,
All
big
right.
and small.
Tell me later.
Yes, but apparently, yeah. So you Enterprise fans, all three of you, this is going to be your movie. I'll tell you, I've never appreciated Carl Urban so much as Bones. He is hilarious. The Bones Spock stuff, they really lean into on this one because when everyone is sort of divided into groups, it's not the groups you would expect. And so Bones and Spock are one of them. I think it's Kirk and Chekhov, played by the late Anton Yelchin. Scotty bonds with an alien who looks a lot like Daryl Hannah in Clan of the Cave Bear, and then I think everybody else gets captured or something. But but yeah, the Bones Spock stuff is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the thing I like most probably about this one versus the other two, which I also didn't mind, is that this one seems to be the least concerned about we need to establish this version of these characters.
Right.
They're very much like, this is Spock, this is Bones.
We're here.
This is Kirk. And there's like small character arcs, but it really is just kind of like, these guys, they're just going to kind of do their thing. And so you really just get to see Bones and Spock doing essentially their dynamic from like the original TV show and from the old movies with the old cast. I mean, I think just in general, the thing I probably like the most about this one is that it's the most kind of like replacement level Star Trek movie. And that it really is kind of like, because I've had friends who are not big Star Trek fans who say, if I haven't been keeping up with these, do I need to have seen the other two Abrams movies? I don't think you do, actually.
No, this one's very self-contained.
Yeah, this one is very much, I think, like if you know Star Trek in general and have watched the old TV show or watched the old movies, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into in this one. And there's nothing that's, other than the Enterprise fan service that I totally miss, you can watch this one and just be like perfectly in step with what's going on. For me, like one of the problems, as much as I like Elba as an actor, that bad guy is not really that great, I think, in this movie. I think that he is very dark and imposing, and there are like big stakes, but it's kind of like, I think just in general, this movie's problem is the problem I have with like Star Trek movies in general, where he doesn't only have like a dastardly plan, but his he has like a theme of what he believes, which runs perfectly counter to what the Enterprise crew believes. So they're not just battling the bad guy. It's like whose mindset or whose worldview is going to triumph. And I think that obviously with the Star Trek world, there's always been sort of like, it's more of like have a philosophical, intellectual underpinning than say Star Wars does. But it feels kind of like forced in a way. I agree that this movie is really fun, but there's also that kind of element of like the nature of friendship and families and togetherness that doesn't always kind of work really seamlessly in this movie.
And I think that's where Justin Lin comes in, because he's the guy who sort of revamped the Fast and Furious series and made it the juggernaut that it eventually became. And I think that notion of the created family and of the people who have each other's back comes from those movies, and I think he's kind of applying it to the Enterprise crew. And I'd say for the most part, it's a good fit. It works. It matches their group dynamic, and then of course the larger dynamic of the Federation itself, and is it a good idea for these planets to try and coexist in harmony rather than be constantly at war. And
just the Star Trek ethos in general of like understanding, right?
Yeah.
And the understanding of others, which might seem scary, but we can all get along.
Yeah.
And also the thing that they're after, I don't think it matters. The thing is literally a MacGuffin.
It's a MacGuffin, yeah,
full
pretty much.
MacGuffin, and it doesn't really matter because again, like the Star Trek movies are about like fostering relationships and validating philosophies that are about harmony, and so I'm not sure it matters that the bad guy is a good bad guy, right?
I would argue.
Well, sometimes we get good bad. I mean, like Ricardo Montalban's Khan in Star Trek II, great bad guy. Yeah. But then Star Trek IV, which is a lot of fun, has no real bad guy at all.
Basically the destruction of the Earth from that ship. Yeah. Like an alien thing. I would say like the Borg is a great bad guy in Next Generation. It's not as important, I think, maybe as in the James Bond movies, but I think it's kind of important. I think it does make a difference.
It's noticeable that he's a little underwritten and undercooked, I think, but not in a way that ruined the movie for me in any way.
And then you have Idris Elba, and you put him in all the prosthetic crap. Right. Not unlike our friend Oscar Isaac in the movie.
But you do get to see actual Idris Elba at certain points in the movie. So,
thank God.
And I will say that there's a lot of aliens in this movie that look like melted candles, but they look like different melted candles, and I give them credit for that, because like that was my beef with John Carter and even I think Warcraft to an extent, where you have these alien beasts and they all look kind of alike, and unless one of them's missing a tusk or whatever, you can't really distinguish them. But these are all, I was like, okay, I know that candle from that candle. So
and you were saying about Urban being really good, and I agree. I've just generally liked him in this series, but I actually think Chris Pine is the one who I really like, because I think that in the first of the Abrams movies that he was in, he felt very self-consciously like he was trying to be William Shatner. And the thing I've liked is the series has gone along, and I think it's very true in this one, as I don't feel the Shatner influence anymore. And I think also that character in the first two of the Abrams movies, he was supposed to be kind of like this rebellious young punk, who's like trying to needs to grow up essentially.
Right.
He is grown up in this one. And I actually kind of like that that's a thing that's just established, because I think that Pine really kind of stands out now in this cast. I've always liked him as an actor in other things, but not necessarily liked him so much in Star Trek movies. I think this is like the first one that he's done where he kind of stands kind of shoulder to shoulder with Zachary Quinto, who's always been great as Spock. The other thing I want to add, we've mentioned, Anton Yelchin died about a month ago now. I mean, and he is good in this movie. He doesn't have a lot to do, and I think for me that was always the sadness, as much as I like him as an actor, is that Star Trek was never, I think, the best vehicle for in terms of what he could do as an actor. I think he did check off really well, but there was always a bit one note, unfortunately.
It's the kind of thing where I think if he'd been around and the series had been around, which I think it's going to be, eventually they would have spotlighted him a little more. Like this movie, we get more Sulu than usual.
Yes, we do.
Besides the, hey, he's gay now thing.
Let's talk about gay Sulu.
I think gay Sulu is great, obviously. And as far as, I don't get the objection to it because, like Gene Roddenberry didn't create him that way. Gene Roddenberry didn't make Spock and Uhura a couple either. Like these movies are on an alternate timeline. We're allowed to play around with things a bit. I like that gay Sulu happens organically, quickly, not a big fuss is made about it, but it gives him stakes in terms of like if the horrible thing is going to happen, it's going to affect his family because they're in this space base, whatever. And he gets to fucking take the comm in this movie and like do some shit. And it's like, yes, gay Sulu.
Yeah, this is a great point because John Cho really gets to kind of shine in this movie in more of like a supporting role, but he is important in terms of what happens in the movie. I think you're right that if the series continues, and obviously it's going to, those like supporting characters have gotten more and more to
They
do.
get their spotlight at some
So
point.
it's unfortunate that Yelchin just didn't get that chance.
Yeah. Carl Urban to me is the Kate McKinnon here. Right? Because it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's weird, but it's not necessarily one-note weird. But there's also moments where he has actual dramatic depth with Chris Pine. Chris Pine kind of has to be in the tough position of being the straight man, no pun intended, with a gay Sulu. But we have really specific crazy characters all around him with specific traits, and he has to hold it all together and be cohesive, and that's tough to do while also being commanding. And as I think, he has evolved nicely through all of this. Do I have any complaints about this? There's one kind of confusing thing here.
I will say the editing and the cinematography is on, like, teetering on the edge of incomprehensibility at times.
In the fight sequences with the white makeup chick.
Yeah, well, that and some of the big like space battles, or you know where like ships are going through cities and chasing each other and stuff. I was like almost in like Michael Bay territory, but never quite.
It's never quite that bad, but it gets there a little bit.
It's like there was a movie I really liked this year called Take Me to the River, and I talked to the director, and it was edited by the guy that did Force Majeure, and he said that one of the things that this guy would do would be to like take out everything, all the dialogue from a scene, and then put back just enough to make the scene make sense, so you know what was going on, but not so much that it took away the suspense or whatever. I kind of felt like the editing here was sort of like, all right, we'll go completely to Crazy Town, and then we'll put back just enough frames so that the eye can register what's happening.
But there are genuinely thrilling, tense moments here with the Enterprise, with the thing that happens to them that separates them. That's all I'm going to say. And then at the end, how it all reconciles is nutty and fun. But not incomprehensible, I didn't think. I was excited and I was on the edge of my seat.
I will say that the first big action sequence, is it in the trailers? I haven't watched any of the trailers for this movie, so I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. So I don't want to say
the big thing that happens first.
But I will say that I think it's actually the best battle sequence they've had in a Star Trek movie since Wrath of Khan. And I actually think it actually does something they've never thought of in that Star Trek universe, which is in terms of size of ships. And the problem is that different sizes of ships might actually create is really ingeniously, I think, incorporated into the opening.
It also made me think about like the Enterprise, this thing that we've seen for our entire lives, you know, on TV and in movies and stuff. It's the first time that it made me think about what is where and what parts do what thing. You know, they literally, all that comes into play, and it's like, okay, so that's what that does, you know.
And it's bigger than I thought. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
I don't know if you were big Next Generation fans.
Not really.
Because that to me is like they did a great job in terms of really kind of making that ship feel like a home. And this is the first time I think in one of the movies you really got a sense of like there being a life beyond just those people
in the deck
on the deck and like that.
And Chris Pine's opening monologue helps with that too. You know, his little whatever his report is. I know there's a word for it. What's the thing?
Captain's log.
Thank you, Captain's log. I'm going to get so much shit for not doing Captain's log. But
the Captain's diary.
Yeah, but he helps
Dear
explain.
diary.
And I'm not usually a big fan of like voiceover over explaining things off the top. But this is very effective in establishing that world, right? Establishing what the dynamic is and what the vibe is like on the show.
And I love any movie where they trot out Shore Agdashlu for a couple of scenes.
Nice to see her.
She is instant.
Gravitas.
Gravitas.
A word we all like here. Gravitas, yes. All right, so then what are your numbers, guys?
I give it a 7. It's solidly entertaining. I had a great time.
Yeah, I give it a 7 too. I think it's solidly familiar in that Star Trek world. Entertaining, and like we talked about with Ghostbusters last week, with a terrible summer that we've had, this rises above a lot of the dreck we've had.
Yeah.
No question.
I am strangely really high on this compared to these guys. I'm at 8.5. I had a blast. And maybe it does also about expectations, perhaps, right?
Sure.
So our number is 7.5. I did math on my own like a big girl.
And on the tomato meter?
And tomato meter is at 88%. It was in the 90s, and now it's dropping a little bit. So, but it's really good and really fun. So, and if you're going to take your kid, it's a little scary. It's a little scary? I don't know. They'll be fine. Bye.